And this happened in his life, to sealing himself to married women. It was not a practice that was carried on, except, as we know, in various compensatory ways after husbands died, after his death. But he thought it was right. And I don't think there's going to be right now I don't see any explanation that will be satisfying to us on the horizon. We're just going to have to swallow it, live with it, digest it, and do or die. In the months before Oliver's excommunication, what was his relationship with Joseph like? Testy. Joseph was beginning to feel uneasy about Oliver and there are many complaints against Oliver, as you know, but I don't know that anyone knows the inner history of Joseph Smith, Oliver Cowdery, and plural marriage. There's so many things said about Oliver's possible involvement illicitly, ahead of schedule, and what we do know is that Oliver accused Joseph Smith of having an affair with Fanny Alger. And Joseph's chief concern at that time was to get Oliver to admit Joseph had never said he was himself committing adultery. Joseph was married to her. It was of immense importance to him not to be thought of as an adulterer. And because Oliver was making these charges, it disturbed those connections. So I don't think Joseph was particularly unhappy when Oliver left, despite their friendship that went back so many years. It's a tragic moment, a tragic story, but their relationship had unraveled by the spring of 1838. Has your research validated the concept the Masonic required that Joseph be married prior to receiving, and that Moroni required that Joseph be married prior to receiving the plates? There's a little bit of evidence, but I don't write that down because I'm not sure that it's true. It's possible, but I don't like to get out on ground that's too shaky, and from my point of view, that's shaky evidence. Second question, same handwriting. Do you believe that the money-digging events and opportunities take common cause with the repeated visits of the angel that Joseph shared with his family, describing the lives of the Nephites over several years? Describing the Nephites' lives over several years is what the grammar said, or do you mean Joseph describing for several years the lives of the Nephites? I think that's what I take, yeah. I don't think he did describe the lives of the Nephites for several years. Lucy doesn't say that. He began to describe it immediately after the first visit of Moroni in 1823. It went on for a little while, then Alvin died, and that ended it. So it's that doesn't go on for long. I'm not quite sure I'm following. Take common cause with the repeated visits of the angel. I'll have to talk to you about that afterwards. To what extent might the sea change regarding women be due to problems associated with the introduction of plural marriage? Are you implying that he's giving all of these things to women because he's getting in trouble with women, and especially Emma, because of plural marriage? I don't think so. I tried to argue that making Emma president of the Relief Society was sort of a sop to Emma. And Jill Dirk called me on that and said, you don't have a scrap of evidence to prove that Joseph had honored Emma all his life. It went with his sense of familial priesthood government, that a wife would have a coordinate role with her prophet husband. So in that particular case, I don't think that the hypothesis can be confirmed. Joseph reportedly never succeeded in finding lost items by stone gazing. Would this failure have been a preparation for successful translation? Someone was telling me last night that they'd got the question, if Joseph Smith had a seer stone and he could find lost treasure, why wasn't he rich? And it is a fact that he never did succeed in finding any treasure. I have a little argument ongoing in publications with Dan Vogel about Joseph's involvement in treasure seeking. I don't see him ever avidly trying to be a money digger. Dan Vogel wants to turn into a career path, that he wants to, become the head money digger of the United States. I see him always resisting, his father pressing him into it. I see him not really believing it was possible. Martin Harris does tell a story of Joseph Smith looking into the stones and finding a pin in some straw. And I think there is evidence that he was able to do that sort of thing, what the magic people called a knack. He had a knack. But the question is asking, having failed at money digging, did that begin to turn his mind in another direction in preparing him to go towards translation? I would agree that that is a strong possibility, but that's more in the Vogel sense of you're defeated in your money digging ambitions, so now you try the religious route. You got to keep your options open. And that I don't think particularly true. I think he was overwhelmed by his religious experiences, and that's why he went in that direction. Can you comment on whether Joseph's credibility as a prophet was undermined? Credibility was undermined by the Kinderhook plates. The Kinderhook plates has always been turned into a problem. I can see we got to quit. By those who insist that Joseph Smith was snookered by these characters who made them up and then asked him to translate them. The fact is, he didn't actually translate them. He was sparked by them. But Joseph Smith is sparked by lots of things. I've always said that he has a green thumb. He can plant a seed and grow it into a mustard tree. So he'll take a scripture or a Masonic ritual or something else, and it sort of gets him going, and then the revelation comes to him. And the Kinderhook plates might have started in that direction, but the fact is, he never walked into the trap. And those connivers never sprung the trap. They didn't come out and say, ha 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 ha, we've caught you off base trying to translate plates that we are bogus. That the confession is not made till the 1870s. And the reason they couldn't spring the trap is Joseph didn't step into it. He never carried on what looked like might be a translation of the Kinderhook plates. So I don't see that as really a damaging incident. Could the change in women's standing be instigated by the influx of English saints, i.e. suffragists? I don't think there are many English suffragists in the 1830s, 40s, and certainly not among the people who joined the Latter-day Saint Church. It's an upper middle class phenomenon, not a working class phenomenon, and we were getting the working class. How much did Joseph Sr.'s drinking influence the prophet? Not much directly. It was a source of great shame to Joseph Sr., and this one of the most poignant sentences in all of the record is Joseph Sr.'s blessing to Hiram, expressing appreciation that his son Hiram did not laugh him to scorn when he was out of the way with drink. And in my view, this sense of a father who was damaged, who had really failed as a father, had a powerful influence on Joseph Smith's psychology and was one of the great rewards of having the revelations of the church come, to be able to provide a church that his father would accept. To what extent could the Wesley Walder's 1826 trial document be a forgery? Is it universally conceded among LDS historians as being authentic? I don't think LDS historians think of it as a pure forgery, but it is now moved into the category of all historical documents. That is, it has to be evaluated. It has its biases. It comes to light 60 years after the event, so we have to worry about tampering. But I don't think it's inauthentic in the sense of being a pure fabrication. How would women's place in the church have differed had Joseph lived to be old enough to see the second millennium? That's what my wife is always asking me, so why don't you talk to Claudia? She has all the answers.